As you know, the brain is the controller of the nervous system, but it is also considered as one of the most important endocrine glands, specialized nerve cells, notably in the hypothalamus. This is hypothalamus. Synthesize hormones, which are transported to the pituitary gland. This is the pituitary gland, and there is another gland known as pineal gland. This is the pineal gland inside the brain. Well, the story of endocrine starts from hypothalamus. Hypothalamus has endocrine functions because of its releasing hormones. What are its releasing hormones? The principal hypothalamic neurohormones include both stimulating and inhibiting hormones. What are these? Let me explain. First, I will tell you. Neurohormones that act on anterior pituitary. Corticotrophin-releasing hormone, also known as CRH, controls the release of ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropic hormones. Dopamine causes inhibition of PRL, means dopamine inhibits prolactin release, growth hormone-releasing hormone, also known as GHRH, causes growth hormone release. Somatostatin inhibits growth hormone release. Gomadotropin-releasing hormone, also known as GnRH, causes luteinizing hormone, also known as LH, and follicle-stimulating hormone. FSH release, thyrotropin-releasing hormone, also known as TRH, causes thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH release. Now comes neurohormones, which act on posterior pituitary. It includes oxytocin and vasopressin, also known as antidiuretic hormone, so-called ADH. Both of these hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin, are actually synthesized in the hypothalamus and stored in, but released from the posterior pituitary gland. Therefore, these are studied mainly in posterior pituitary. This is the pituitary gland inside brain. It is the size of a pea. It is historically thought to be the master gland. Here is colored green. But another look like this is pituitary gland, also known as hypophysis, connected to the hypothalamus by the infundibulum, and it is composed of two lobes, anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary, which arise from different embryological origins. The anterior pituitary, also known as adenohypophysis. Why? Adenohypophysis originates from the embryonic oral cavity, and because its secretion of hormones is controlled by releasing factors that are neurohormones produced by nerve cells in the hypothalamus, which travel to the anterior pituitary by the hypothalamic hypophyseal portal system. That is a group of capillaries and veins within the anterior portion of the pituitary gland and the infundibulum, whereas the posterior pituitary is also known as neurohypophysis. Why? Because from neural origin, which means made of nervous tissue, that there are nerve cell bodies in the hypothalamus nuclei. Those hypothalamic nuclei have axons extending down through the infundibulum to the posterior pituitary and release hormones. Let's discuss. First is anterior pituitary. This is anterior pituitary lobe of pituitary gland, and those hypothalamic releasing factors that we discussed earlier act on anterior pituitary to release hormones, or to act on target tissues, such as adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. Target tissue is the adrenal cortex of the adrenal gland that stimulates synthesis and secretion of adrenocortical hormones include cortisol, androgens, and aldosterone. Prolactin, also known as PRL, target tissues are mammary glands, promotes development of the female breasts, and secretion of milk. Thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH, act on thyroid gland, stimulates synthesis and secretion of thyroid hormones, included thyroxine and triiodothyronine. Growth hormone, also called somatotrophin, GH, act on liver, muscles, bones, and promotes muscle and skeletal growth. Luteinizing hormone, LH, act on gonads and promotes testosterone synthesis in males, and stimulates ovulation, formation of corpus luteum, and estrogen, and progesterone synthesis in ovaries in females. Follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, also act on gonads, promotes spermatogenesis in males, and ovarian follicular maturation in females. Now comes posterior pituitary. This is the posterior pituitary lobe of pituitary gland. Through posterior pituitary gland releases two hormones. One is oxytocin, act on mammary glands and uterus. And what are its functions? Oxytocin causes milk ejection from breasts and causes uterine contractions for birth. Other hormone is antidiuretic hormone, ADH. It acts on kidney, promotes water reabsorption from the renal tubules. It causes decreased urine output. It is also known as vasopressin, as it causes vasoconstriction, and in turn cause increased blood pressure. Now, the pineal gland, targets the hypothalamus, and is situated in the brain, and is involved with rhythms. The pineal gland produces melatonin that regulates sleep and wake cycles. Let's move forward towards neck region. This is thyroid gland, and above it is parathyroid gland. Let's first discuss thyroid gland. This butterfly-shaped thyroid gland is located just inferior to the larynx, voice box. The thyroid gland is situated just in front of the trachea. In humans, as you can see here, the circulating hormones are thyroxine T4 and triiodothyronine T3, which increases the rates of chemical reactions in most cells, thus increasing body metabolic rate, whereas calcitonin promotes deposition of calcium in the bones and decreases extracellular fluid calcium ion concentration. These are parathyroid glands. The parathyroid glands are four small glands, embedded in the posterior wall of the thyroid gland, secrete one type of hormone. That is parathyroid hormone, PTH, also known as parathormone. It is important in the control of calcium and phosphate metabolism. The target tissue for parathyroid hormone are bones, digestive system, and kidney. It controls serum calcium ion concentration and also control the release of calcium from bones. Now, move forward towards next endocrine gland. These are adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are situated just above the kidneys, as you can see. Consider this is the adrenal gland and are composed of an outer layer, or cortex, and an inner layer, or medulla. The hormones produced are through adrenal cortex, which releases three basic classes of steroid hormones. One is glucocorticoids. Principally cortisol in humans are involved in carbohydrate metabolism and the response to stress. Two is mineralocorticoids, principally aldosterone, control electrolyte balance, and the third one is androgens, principally testosterone, which modulates secondary sexual characteristics. Through medulla, that releases epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. It also releases norepinephrine, also known as noradrenaline. Both of these, epinephrine and norepinephrine, has same effect as sympathetic stimulation. Move forward towards endocrine pancreas. Pancreas is mainly exocrine gland. Pancreas lies posteriorly in the upper abdomen. As you can see, it looks like this. Consists of islet cells scattered in the larger exocrine pancreas. Recall earlier, I told you the term exocrine refers to glands which have ducts, but we will not cover them in this video. You need not to confuse, as it has also endocrine functions. Therefore, consider this endocrine pancreas, as it secretes four hormones from islet cells. Each pancreatic islet includes four types of hormone-secreting cells. Alpha or A cells constitute about 17% of pancreatic islet cells, and secrete glucagon increases synthesis and release of glucose from the liver into the body fluids. A counter-regulatory hormone to insulin that elevates blood glucose. Beta or B cells constitute about 70% of pancreatic islet cells and secrete insulin, promotes glucose entry in many cells, and in this way, controls carbohydrate metabolism. Delta or D cells constitute about 7% of pancreatic islet cells and secrete somatostatin that identical to the growth hormone inhibiting hormone secreted by the hypothalamus that I teach you earlier, which regulates gastrointestinal motility. F cells constitute the remainder of pancreatic islet cells and secrete pancreatic polypeptide that regulates gastrointestinal secretion. I showed you islet cells with percentage, so you may have idea which cells are found most abundant in pancreas. You can tell beta cells that secrete insulin. As I told you earlier, the endocrine systems of biological males and females typically differs only in their gonads. While males typically have 2 testes, females typically have 2 ovaries. The ovary is the major female reproductive gland and produces estrogens, which regulate reproductive function and secondary sexual characteristics. Progesterone, which stimulates endometrial vascularization and maintains pregnancy, also secretes relaxin, a polypeptide also found in the placenta and uterus, which may be important in parturition by softening the cervix and relaxing the pelvic ligaments, and another hormone secreted by ovary is inhibin, which inhibits FSH production. The placenta is the organ of pregnancy serving the developing fetus. Hormones produced by the placenta include human chorionic gonadotrophin, which maintains placental progesterone synthesis. Human somatomammotropin probably helps promote development of some fetal tissues, as well as the mother's breasts. Estriol, the major form of estrogen secreted by the placenta, progesterone, which maintains the reproductive organs in pregnancy, and relaxin. The testis is the major male reproductive gland, producing testosterone, stimulates descent of the testes before birth, regulates spermatogenesis, and promotes development and maintenance of male secondary sex characteristics. Also secretes inhibin, which inhibits FSH secretion from the anterior pituitary. Now, let's briefly discuss hormones produced by other organs and tissues that contain endocrine cells, such as heart produces atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP act on kidney, causes increased sodium excretion by kidneys, and reduces blood pressure. Moving forward, the gastrointestinal tract is also considered as endocrine organ, as it produces several hormones such as stomach. It produces hormones, such as gastrin, promotes stimulation of gastric juice, stimulates hydrogen chloride secretion by parietal cells. Small intestine, it produces secretin that stimulates pancreatic acinar cells to release bicarbonate and water. It also produces cholecystokinin, which stimulates gallbladder contraction and release of pancreatic enzyme. Liver produces insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, stimulates cell division. Kidney produces hormones involved in the control of blood pressure, and in erythropoiesis, such as renin cleaves angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1 in the kidney and plasma. 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol increases intestinal absorption of calcium and bone mineralization. Erythropoietin stimulates production of red blood cells in the marrow. These were all secreting hormones from endocrine system. Hope now you become familiar with endocrine system and its releasing hormones. So, this was all about our today's video lecture. Hope you enjoyed and understand it completely. Happy learning. Thanks for watching.
Explore our extensive library of over 1,800 video lectures to learn about a wide range of topics. Only on sqadia.com.